Hey there, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spiritual Peacock. I'm Warren, the spiritual guide. I want to share something deeply personal and transformative with you. We're going to dive into the concept of the egoic mind, a topic that has been deeply discussed by many spiritual masters, a topic that has impacted my own spiritual journey. I believe it can do the same for you. Firstly, I understand the struggles you face, that we all face, that constant voice in your mind, the endless chatter that shapes your perceptions, fuels your desires, and often leads you astray. When you start to observe the constant chatter of your mind, you become aware that some of your chatter is self-defeating and harmful. Your own mind is running on autopilot. You have no control over it. And worst of all, at times, it feels like it's against you. See, I know from experience, the egoic mind can feel all-consuming, but what exactly is it? And what impact does it have on our lives? Think of the egoic mind as a psychological construct, a collection of our personalities, thoughts, beliefs, and identities that have been woven into the fabric of our being. It's an accumulation of all our external conditioning. Think about this for a moment. How much of your ego construct was programmed into you by external forces rather than designed or constructed by you? So what exactly is its intended purpose then? View it as an interface, helping us navigate the world by creating a sense of self and other. Or at a deeper level, it allows for an infinite being to have a finite experience. But you see, over time, we become strongly identified with these labels, emotions, feelings, and desires, trapping us in a cycle of suffering and illusion. I get it. This can be overwhelming. So what do spiritual traditions teach on the egoic mind? Well, many claim that the ego is the root cause of human suffering, the source of attachment, fear, and separation. In Buddhism, the ego's clinging and aversion are seen as primary causes of suffering. Hinduism talks about Maya, the illusion of ego that veils our true nature. Christianity, on the other hand, often relates the concept of sin to ego-driven desires and separateness from God. It's as simple and as complicated as this. We've become slaves to the ego, unconsciously identifying so closely with its narratives and external conditioning that we've lost sight of our true nature and purpose. However, all spiritual masters teach on how to escape the self-imposed bondage. So, from my own experience, I've learned that the journey to understanding the egoic mind constructs begins with awareness. Awareness is the golden key. Through awareness, I've recognized that I'm not the thoughts or identities, but the boundless wisdom, or should I rather say, the boundless awareness from which they arise. So I'll say that again. I'm the boundless awareness from which the identities, thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, etc. arise. By cultivating conscious awareness and through self-inquiry, I was able to shine the light of awareness on the ego's devices, unraveling its illusions. Conscious awareness, the practice of present moment awareness, serves as a powerful tool for transcending the ego, or at least becoming aware of the egoic construct. When I began observing my thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions, and identities without judgment or attachment, I created space between myself, the awareness, and the ego's narrative. So myself being the awareness and the ego's narratives. This practice allowed me to see through its illusions, gradually moving back into the role or receding back into the role of the witness. The interesting thing I became aware of is the more I freed myself from the ego's attachments, the more I recognized the transient nature of the content of my mind. In fact, I've come to realize that the entire content of my mind is transient and subjective in nature. I recommend non-judgmental observation and to accept all parts of your egoic construct. You see, I became aware of its dualistic nature, and through self-introspection, it became obvious I was both the light and the dark. I've expressed both love and hate, compassion and anger, sadness and happiness, and all the dualistic expressions, some more than others at different parts or stages of my life. They all arise within me and are expressed outwardly. Accepting my condition in its totality was a very freeing experience for me. I realized the ego was also looking, or always looking, outside of itself, seeking happiness in external objects and blaming others for its pain and suffering. Only by observing the egoic construct without judgment or attachment did I begin to understand its conditioning. I started to become aware of its need to protect itself, its pursuit of desires, and its avoidance of pain, and its constant need for external validation. See, the ego's incessant need for external validation creates a feedback loop that perpetuates its existence. It is constantly looking for approval, recognition, and affirmation from others to validate its sense of self-worth and identity. This validation becomes like fuel for the ego, reinforcing its beliefs and behaviors. It's like when the ego receives praise or acknowledgement, it temporarily feels satisfied and validated. However, this validation is fleeting, so the ego continually seeks more external validation to maintain its sense of significance and happiness. Having said that, when faced with criticism or rejection, the ego experiences a sense of threat to its identity, triggering defensive mechanisms and further intensifying its desire for validation. It's that reason the ego becomes trapped in a cycle of seeking validation from external sources, unable to find lasting fulfillment or contentment within itself. The reason for this, the reason why it is never satisfied, is because it is finite and subjective and transient in nature. It can never be complete or whole. Because you see, in very simple terms, it's essentially an illusionary construct. So placing your happiness in an illusionary, egoic construct of desire by running towards pleasure is like trying to fill a bottomless well with water. It'll never be enough, and the thirst will never be satisfied. Likewise, running away from pain is like trying to hold back the ocean with a sieve. No matter how much you try, the waves of discomfort and dissatisfaction will always seep through. Because the ego, by its very nature, will always create another desire upon another desire upon another desire to try and achieve, or will always seek the avoidance of what it perceives as painful. Or it will always seek the validation of others. When you reside in awareness, in presence, in consciousness, beyond the mind, or should I say beyond the ego, the egoic mind, you stop resisting life. You become more accepting of your experience, trusting in the divine unfolding of your life. You start to allow without placing judgment or narrating whether a situation is good or bad. You understand it just is. You know, life is neither meaningful nor meaningless, neither good nor bad, neither purposeful or pointless. All meanings of how life should unfold, what life is, or its purpose are purely subjective to the person. And this is influenced by society, country, region, culture, of where the person grew up. Okay, so self-inquiry involves questioning the beliefs and assumptions that underpin the ego's identities. Through introspection and reflection, you can discern between the stories of the ego and the truth of your most inner beingness. I have to say, this process has been incredibly freeing for me, and I believe it can help you step into your authentic self as well. My advice is to observe everything that arises within you and inquire whether it's permanent or impermanent. Consider whether its nature is subjective and prone to change, or if it represents absolute truth. In other words, can someone perceive it differently or attribute a different meaning to it? If they can, then it's subjective in nature. You are therefore holding on to it by either choice or awareness. As you delve deeper, you'll notice that everything emerging from awareness eventually dissolves back into awareness. Change is inherent in everything. The interesting thing is the duration of its presence is determined by attachment and identification with it. Awareness itself is boundless. You as awareness are boundless. Everything else is finite. This you cannot be anything other than awareness. Don't take mine or anyone's word for it. Go deep into introspection and verify this for yourself. Otherwise, it's just another belief system. I want to be clear. Silencing the mind and adopting the role of the observer demands consistent and deliberate practice, infusing present awareness into every aspect of life. It is challenging trying to uncover and let go of your shadows. You see, you're trying to become conscious from a place of unconsciousness. It's a paradox. Through my own experience, I can tell you that just when you believe you've transcended the mind, the universe invariably presents challenges that reveal deeper layers of ego. The belief that you have transcended or mastered the mind is a question asked by the mind. It's another mind game, a spiritual pitfall. When this happened, I would become disappointed, even judgmental of myself, even ashamed of myself. All the effort, all the observing, all the spiritual practices, and yet I'm still going through this process. Don't. Rather resist the temptation to be discouraged. Double down and persist in maintaining present awareness in every circumstance you can, directing your focus towards observing your feelings, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, identifications, and sensations without seeking to alter them. Just observe without resistance. It's difficult. It is very difficult. I know. You see, this non-resistance is essential, as any attempt to change what arises only reintroduces the ego. Your aim is to create enough awareness and space to see that you are the awareness. And the awareness is separated from your thoughts, emotions, perceptions, identifications, etc. There is no doubt that moments will arise in your life where you react through impulse to a situation. The moment you become aware, revisit the situation with a mindful lens and introspection. See, time is a made man construct. Don't worry if it's after the fact. You can bring it into the present moment and reframe the entire experience. Walk through it moment by moment, purely focused on your actions and feelings, and ask the question, would you have reacted or responded to the situation differently had you become more consciously aware at the time that there were higher vibrational choices available? If so, play the entire incident back in your mind using the higher vibrational choices and feelings available to you. Remove external forces and focus solely on your personal growth, your personal illusions and shadows. Through this mental revisitation, and by navigating towards the path of your highest state of consciousness available to you at that time, this will gradually start to diminish the gaps of unconscious behavior over time. You see, embrace the understanding that higher vibrational options always exist. It's just a matter of becoming aware of them. You know, each life situation acts as a reflective mirror, unveiling unconscious aspects yet to be unearthed. When you can, seize your opportunity for expansion. Try not to externalize. Go inward. It's been presented to you as an opportunity for growth. I want you to understand true awareness flows effortlessly, mirroring your innate essence. Having said this, the egoic mind instinctively resists and creates conflicts. Where does this resistance come from? Well, typically, it arises when life circumstances, individuals, or experiences fail to align with your ego's preconceived notions of how reality should unfold for you. And therefore, suffering arises within, and you respond to life in a negative, reactive way. We are constantly trying to manipulate our will on existence. Instead of allowing existence, God, consciousness, higher self, awareness, I use these terms interchangeably. However, allowing divine's will to navigate your path. I think it's important to understand, and as you grow and evolve, you recognize this for yourself. You are not alone. We all are conditioned in the same way, with the same egoic constructs. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. The only difference is the programming will look different depending on your experiences. My advice, for what it's worth, is question everything of your mind. And I'm certain at some point you'll become aware that everything in your mind is subjective, seen through your own lens and transient in nature. You see, truth is unchangeable. It's not transient or subjective. The silent witness, awareness, is permanent. It is there, aware of all the subjective and transient aspects of your experience, completely unaffected. The more you cultivate present awareness and allow the flow of existence in your life, the more subtly you move back into your awareness. You are the awareness itself, and the ego construct is merely an illusion. With this understanding, you can cultivate higher vibrational energies within and operate on higher dimensions of consciousness. This doesn't necessarily entail a change in your external circumstances or the world around you. Rather, it signifies that you are no longer affected deeply by external factors or events, and the change to live in higher dimensions has occurred within you. Once you start becoming aware and expanding your consciousness, you can't go backwards, but you will fall in and out of conscious and unconscious patterns of behavior. So don't be discouraged about this. It's very easy to fall into a negative space of shame or blame towards others. With enough awareness, observe these feelings and you'll see them disappear back into awareness. Exercise patience and self-love, because through this process, you'll begin to perceive the interconnectedness of existence and break free from the illusions of separation fostered by the ego. I want to make it clear. I often come across a lot of confusion and debate over this. It's crucial to recognize that the journey isn't centered on eliminating the ego or dissolving it, but rather on mastering or transcending it. The ego serves essential functions in our lives, aiding us in navigating life's complexities. You can't live without the ego. Instead of attempting to eradicate the ego, we should aim to harness its power and direct it towards positive ends. By understanding and utilizing the ego for its intended purpose, we can ensure it becomes a tool for our growth and development. And with us as its master, or should I rather say, it allow us to be the master and it the servant. One piece of advice: just observe rather than engaging in a battle to silence or shut off your mind. It's pointless and leads to further entanglement in egoic patterns. There is resistance in that. There is no struggle in awareness. Instead, consistently direct your attention to the awareness beyond the thoughts, feelings, sensations, emotions, and perceptions. Become the observer. I encourage you to observe your own egoic mind construct. If you observe with non-attachment and non-judgment, you can verify all of what I've shared with you for yourself. As your awareness grows, your consciousness will expand.